you know, like with the idea of Jamaican music, there's a lot of pride in wearing it out and like, you know, flags and all that stuff.
I don't know if I understand. I don't know if I'm following what you're saying. Are you saying that Jamaican artists
embrace their identity?
Yeah, see, I almost even feel like that's more of a recent phenomenon. You mean Jamaican hip hop artists?
Jamaican hip hop artists, unless, like you would say dancehall artists. I mean, like
okay,
if I'm taking it like in a broader.
I see. But I'm just saying, even if we say within hip hop, like I would say in the 70s and in the 80s. I mean, it's cats. No, because it's cats who I just found out was from the Caribbean. Right. You know, because they were not repping that back then. Kid and Play. He's Jamaican. I never knew that until recently. You know what I'm saying? Like people know like Kirk is from Jamaica, but like other artists like. It's a little bit more. It wasn't like something that was just out.
I guess I mean this is part of like the explosion of dancehall in general.
Yeah.
But doesn't this idea of wanting to represent what your ethnic background is or racial background is, doesn't that have almost everything to do with how that group is located and viewed in the U.S., whether it's seen as positive or negative? So being an Indian MC takes away your qualifications as a real MC, then maybe you just want to say you're an MC. Or does it have to do with, you know, how South Asians are viewed in the U.S., not seeing that as necessarily in a favorable place? I mean, I'm not. And going back to what Fahad is saying in terms of being colorblind, if you look at your lyrics, all of your lyrics, they're very racially conscious, unless I'm misreading. So you have like a flip sin. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to push that in terms of you're coming at hip hop with this. It seems like with these ideologies that we recognize that we are, you know, racialized people in the U.S., which means something different than saying I don't see race.
Right. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I think. To me, it's just having a dialogue, you know, it's not just about, obviously I'm proud of who I am, where I come from. That's not the issue. I think the issue is that, to me, I don't want it to be a strictly South Asian American conversation in hip hop. I want to have a conversation about race in America through hip hop. Right. So I can address racism, sexism, all that stuff. And obviously it's coming through my filter, which is who I am, where I come from. So I don't deny it, but to me, that shouldn't be the only thing that should be, you know, talked about or it's important. You know?
Is that generational? Maybe it's generational. Like I think most certainly in like this post 9/11 environment, I think that people of color are definitely seeing more reasons that we kind of get lumped together. Whereas I think prior to that, or maybe even not so much 9/11, but just prior to that, it just seems, you know, almost seems like a generation gap where these issues are kind of like generationally issues play out a little different. Do you see that at all?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I think I see what you're saying with that for sure. Like I think in a post 9/11 world there is a feeling among South Asians that I know around me that I feel like they feel more ostracized whether or not they actually are or not. And they concede that. You know, friends of mine will say, you know, sometimes, well, like I was just telling you before, you know, when I went through the airport and I was wondering if they checked my ID because my name is Kabir. Right. You know, and those kinds of things are going to be tied to who we are as people now versus as people pre 9/11. But then the flip side of it, and I don't know if you guys feel this way, because I think for me, part of it too is that I think people see me a lot of times and they don't know who I am or where I'm from. I'm a multiracial person. They think I could be Hispanic, or they think I could be white. A lot of people just think of me as a white rapper, you know. And so I think part of that for me is kind of towing the line and just accepting that that's going to be the way that I'm going to have an ambiguous sort of feeling about me in other people's eyes. They don't necessarily know who I am. But what I wanted to get at also was that when I sort of think about being Indian, I don't necessarily, when I perform, I'm not thinking like, this is me in an American world, this is me as an Indian in an American world. I want to echo his sentiments that like, it's more about this is me in America and let's get all the issues out on the table because it's bigger than me. It's bigger than you, you know. And so, for me, the way that I look at hip hop and sort of politics in hip hop through my own songs is more just sort of using it as a forum to take us all to a different place and get us all to think about things in a different way.
You gotta balance out the good and the bad. Like, if I'm a Pakistani rapper, I might get looked at first, but they might doubt me. Like, you don't know how to rap, you know what I mean? But they look at me first, and then when I can showcase that, better believe I can do my thing, you know. The rest is self-evident. It's just, you know, it's a give and take.
Yeah. So in that sense, sometimes skills trump.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's all up to skills. Look at Eminem. Nobody took him serious when he came out, and now look where he's at. You know, so there's a lot of examples of people who just, you know, overcame that, all the stereotypes.
I think one of the reasons there's, I mean, maybe this is true for you guys or not, but the resistance of embracing the South Asian, because there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of people who do not take this seriously, who think, oh, I can do well for an Indian, or I hear it all the time. He's good for an Indian kid. What does that mean? You know, like, there are a lot of like novices, a lot of people that think that there's some weird opportunity, and they, you know, I mean, especially see it amongst young women who want to be R&B singers. So, and you see it a lot from England. They love their R&B.
Right.
You know, I'll do R&B. You know, like whatever. So like they want, but they want to emulate people who like
funk soul.
Like, you know, Beyonce or something has been singing since she was 2 years old, and just get up because they feel like there's a certain ease to an access of an audience, a given audience that is not as critical or will. And I think that's part of it. I mean, you know, we're building a community of people who are, you know, solid about it. And I think there's some of that.
It's something else I wanted to ask, and that is, a couple of years ago, I did a national tour of town hall meetings on race and hip hop, and Oliver Wang, who I'm sure everyone up here knows, was one of the panelists. And one of the things that kept coming up, we would be talking about race and hip hop and how different communities were reacting generationally to hip hop, right? And one of the things that I remember Oliver saying at one point was that he felt that in terms of you know, Chinese American community, when younger people were getting into hip hop, they met less resistance from their parents for engaging in this black art form, because they were still doing the traditional things that Asian kids are supposed to do. Like, they were still going to college, you know what I mean? Whereas, you know, some of the other kids were like, I'm doing hip hop, this is what I do, I'm not gonna conform, I'm just doing hip hop, you know what I mean? Like, they weren't thinking like, I gotta go to college. In many cases of kids who dropped out of college, because they're like, this is what I wanna do, and college is not really what I'm feeling. So I'm just curious, do you guys see any of that in your own experiences?
Well, you know, to me, I never thought that I could make a living with hip hop. I was pretty clear on that, just because I think you have to represent certain things, especially the way the music industry is set up now to an extent. If you don't do that, you're not gonna make a living. You could do okay on it, but you can't, you know, you can't feed a family, you can't do all that stuff. So to me, I mean, I questioned if I wanted to go to college at one point, but I realized that my options were limited if I didn't go.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in college, I still did hip hop. It was just something that I knew I had to do. You know, but it, you know, to me, my family's very different, so they never tripped off me doing hip hop. They encouraged it. You know, my mom encouraged it because she understood that it meant a lot to me.
But what if you were doing hip hop and you weren't still going to school?
Well, I think she was disappointed, but I think ultimately, for me, I think the choice would have been mine. I would have to make those consequences, and she would have been, all right, you made your bed, now sleep in it. You know? So
I think for me, I got into hip hop at a younger age through freestyling as a kid. That was my window into hip hop, was freestyling with my friends, and that's how I got into it. But then in college, actually, I went to Wesleyan University, and in college, my interest in hip hop expanded, and that's kind of, I think, where I actually began to realize that this was something that the direction I was going in was really tied to me being in college and I was a music major, and I wrote my senior thesis on the evolution of political hip hop. And so, you know, I read a lot of Amiri Baraka, and like I studied the work of Gil Scott-Heron, and I started to realize more and more that my influence in hip hop was a political one, and using the idea of hip hop as an agent for social change was something that I was really interested in. Now that being said, once I realized that was going to be my focus, and I thought that was kind of the direction